Welcome to LexTalk, World Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today we have Mr. Lalltaksh Joshi with us. Mr. Joshi is a litigation counsel with over 20 reported judgments by the Supreme Court of India and the Delhi High Court. And also he's an author of widely shared articles in multiple legal news platforms and magazines. He has represented Government of India Undertakings, various Indian and international firms, and a prominent cricket association as well. He's a greedy reader of books of both worlds, imagined and inhabited. A graduate of the Symbiosis Law School, Pune. He actually currently is in Delhi, if I'm not wrong. Quite an interesting personality, and I can absolutely go on and on when it comes to Mr. Joshi because I've had a few conversations with him in the past. But without any further ado, let me just introduce you to the man himself. Hello, Mr. Joshi. How are you?
Hi, very well. Hope you're doing good.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for asking, Mr. Joshi. So after a lot of telephonic conversations, it's a pleasure to have you and to interview you. Before we start with anything else, I just would like you to share your journey as a legal professional, just to give audience an overview.
My journey so far has been a mix of both ups and downs. I've been in the practice for the last 7 years. I'll be completing 7 years now. I have had my bit of experience in the corporate world at JSW, from where I started my profession. Thereafter, I moved to Delhi, and I have assisted and worked with some of the most legendary senior counsels in Delhi, which have taught me many valuable lessons in order to make a good foundation for me to set up my own practice. And presently, I am working as a litigation counsel.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Just to back up a little bit, how was your experience at the graduate rotation program of JSW Mumbai? And also, like, just to be sure, like right now you're somewhere else. So why did you quit such a coveted job at a leading business group of India, having like a workforce of nearly 40,000 people?
A graduate rotation program of JSW, it's one of the most desirable jobs for graduates in India, primarily because they select sharp minds from across top colleges in India from diverse backgrounds, such as engineering, economics, law, etc. So, you get a mixed bunch and a mixed bag of graduates from different backgrounds. And then they give those graduates a flavor of core business processes of the group to train them for leadership positions. Those students are even encouraged to pursue masters from premium universities across the world. So, it's a very holistic program to join at the beginning of your career. During my 4th year of law school, I was selected for the summer internship program at JSW. And after 8 weeks of my journey over there, I received a pre-placement offer for the graduate rotation program. That was, my introduction to commercial contracts disputes. And I got an opportunity to work with business leaders of the group, which broadened my horizon at the beginning of my career. One very interesting feature is that, and which I learned at JSW, that business looks at court cases from a practical prism of its economic impact. That is unlike the perspective which practicing lawyers have, who focus more on the law, they focus more on the merits of the case. But business looks at it differently. And then they accordingly decide whether to join or not join issues, regardless of merits in many cases. Another quality which I learned from my seniors at JSW was that positivity and zeal of the business leaders at the group that imbibed a never settle mantra in me. 1 year of my post qualification evolution, if I can say so, at JSW made me realize my calling for litigation. And being a third generation lawyer, I was always in awe of that art of court craft. Uh, However, I wanted to have an experience of the corporate world to have a broad perspective before I venture into the litigation arena. After introspecting the pros and cons for many months, I decided to move to Delhi to pursue my passion for legal advocacy. I feel my first job at JSW laid the foundation of my interest in commercial contract laws, which is my practice area presently.
Uh, Thank you, Mr. Joshi. But just a follow-up question, as you just mentioned that you're a third generation lawyer and now you're practicing in Delhi. So, being a third generation lawyer in Amritsar at Punjab, why did you choose Delhi to practice law? Because I'm sure, like, if you would have been in the same place, like, there are perks, right? But you kind of completely switched the area itself. So, why did that happen? I mean, any particular reasons?
As difficult as it was to decide whether to quit my first job, it was equally tough to choose between Punjab and Delhi to practice law.
Absolutely.
Precisely for the reason, like you rightly mentioned, that there are perks which comes with a legal background running in the family. Uh, in my case, my father was a driving force in molding my decision. He pushed me to take up the challenge of setting up my own practice in Delhi, but then he also left the buck to stop at me in this case. I am a strong believer of independence of the legal profession. It sorts of gels with my personality. Given the dynamics of the occupation, it was very vital for me to come out of the professional shadow of my father, which would have been the case if I had gone to Punjab. I, but I always had the comfort that my father always had my back in case I fall. But at the same time, I was sure of not leaving Delhi without making a mark. And that's how I landed in Delhi. And at the same time, there's no denying the fact that Delhi is an ocean of opportunities for litigation counsels, but at the same time, that comes with added challenges, struggles, and difficulties in setting up your own shop. Um, but as you rightly mentioned, the perk of having lawyers in the family, and I'll tell you one very interesting perk of having a legal background. The familiarity with functioning of courts and an understanding of legal profession, that's a part of pedigree in a lawyer's family, which is not regional specific. So regardless of the place of practice, that familiarity would always remain with me.
Very well said, Mr. Joshi. Now, when we're talking about challenges, it would be great if you can share with us about, like, I'm very sure it's very hard for you to choose one complex legal issue, but anything that you would like to share with us, any interesting or a complex legal issue.
I'll share one of the recent experiences that I've had. You see, in the Indian law, challenging uh, interlocutory or interim or temporary orders passed by an arbitrator, it's one of the most recent complex legal issues that I've faced. Indian courts are usually circumspect in interfering with the arbitral process, as arbitration is an expeditious mode of dispute resolution. Even the Arbitration and Conciliation Act in India stipulate that parties should wait for passing of the arbitral award to raise objections against the arbitral process, except in, of course, in certain defined cases. Uh, Recently, I was faced with a situation where the learned arbitrator had passed, in my opinion, unreasonable interlocutory orders. So I argued that those orders were against first principles, and raising objections after passing of the arbitral award would be an illusory remedy, as the final award would be devoid of crucial evidence refused as a consequence of those interim orders. So, as a result, I was left with no remedy but to challenge those orders before the final award. And I'll tell you the reason of canvassing the point in that direction. arguments couched in first principles often have an enhanced impact. So that's how I sort of tried to build my arguments on first principles in that case. But that was uh, one of the recent challenges I have faced.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Mr. Joshi. I'm sure it must have been really hard to choose just one, but I would really like to thank you. The pandemic. Now, this is kind of a very trending thing that I'm going to ask you, because we never thought that we would see this day, thanks to pandemic, where there are virtual hearings going on and all these things. Like no one thought that this could happen, but it is happening, and everything is just going remote. Do you think that these remote proceedings and everything is like is this sustainable and a possible way to increase the access to justice?
Uh, in my opinion, shifting of the functioning of courts to video conferencing has been one of the most evolutionary processes of the recent time. The legal profession is aligning more with technology by going paperless, electronic filings, court hearings being conducted through video conferencing. Recently, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud is uh, presently a judge of the Supreme Court of India. He recently underlined the importance of change in mental attitudes towards use of technology in courts. Shifting of courts to the electronic platforms has resulted in an increased access to justice, in my opinion, particularly for litigants from remote areas. And the added advantage is that it comes at no cost. And you'll be surprised to know that with more than 750 million subscribers for wireless broadband services in India and more than 150 million smartphones being sold in India last year, there is definitely no doubt about the massive reach of internet service across India. As a result, you see, almost every Indian can access courts on electronic platforms, sitting within the confines of their homes or their neighborhood. This would also aid in expeditious disposal of cases, as there would be lesser excuses to seek adjournment on the grounds of inability to travel or being stuck in traffic jams. Recently I was with a situation where a litigant suffered an adverse order because the party couldn't reach the court in time, and as a result, they had to seek an adjournment without giving advance notice to the learned judge. Be that as it may, no one is right, no one is wrong in these kind of situations. But these kind of situations can easily be overcome with accessing courts through internet on video platforms. It's also simpler to manage voluminous files on electronic platforms. You see, one iPad can contain uh, as as big as what, a 2 BHK or a 3 BHK amount of space that goes in storing files, paper files. That entire paper can be stored in one iPad. So definitely it makes life much simpler. Moreover, access to courts electronically has also led to an increase in the productivity for lawyers who are otherwise unable to work on other assignments while waiting for their turns in court. And I feel that is one great advantage of aligning the legal profession with technology. Particularly with new COVID variants springing up from time to time, I feel shifting of courts to electronic platforms or at least hybrid hearings is surely a sustainable and way forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, when we've already talked about technology taking over us, we know that it has been like really time saving as well. You just gave an example yourself. Now, when we talk about time, particularly, it's like money in any profession, and of course in legal, it's most of all. It's a very hectic schedule. There's hours and hours of study, which is in studying, which is involved. Uh, so how do you ensure that you make the best of your time? Like, what do you do differently to make sure that you're managing your time well?
Let me begin by saying I don't do anything differently. I just tend to keep myself occupied throughout the day so that each minute is utilized in the most efficient manner.
Right.
For instance, I chalk down my ongoing assignments to ensure that all the pending tasks for the day are staring right in my face. It sort of helps me to plan my day better. And like I said, it keeps me occupied. For instance, and like I've already mentioned, I work on other cases while waiting for my turn in court. Uh, to make the most of my time not only runs in the family, but I've also learned that from my seniors. And to prepare for cases in advance in order to avoid last minute hiccups is another lesson taught to me by my seniors. The present scenario has compelled lawyers to conduct client meetings and conferences through video channels. And let me tell you, this compulsion has been a blessing because it saves up huge time spent in commute. I feel these are few ways in which I try to make the most efficient use of my time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joshi, for throwing light on a lot of things together. We got to know about your journey as a legal professional. At the same time, we talked about your expertise as well. Uh, at the same time, I just want to add like one more thing. If there is any advice that you would like to give to the budding lawyers, I know that we're already running a bit late here, but still, if you would like to share something with the budding lawyers.
Frankly, I am myself not very old in the profession, but I would say from what I've learned from my seniors, there is just no excuse for not reading. You got to read your files. You got to read them word by word. You got to read them from the first alphabet on the top left of the page to the full stop on the right hand side corner of the page. There is just no excuse for that. Likewise, there is just no excuse for not reading the latest judgments passed by the honorable courts. You gotta do it. There's just no excuse for that. And that really adds up and hones your skill as a lawyer. Because by reading the case files, by reading judgments, it gives you a whole new perspective to approach your upcoming cases.
And I think just to add like one more thing to it, I guess reading is something which should be a mandate thing for everybody out there, right? It kind of so there's a difference between knowledge and information. So knowledge actually just comes out of reading. Information you can get anywhere and everywhere. So thank you so much. On that note, we have come to an end of this amazing conversation. I'm really looking forward to many more conversations like these. We can talk about other trending topics in the legal space. It was a pleasure having you, Mr. Joshi. And yes, to our viewers, please like and share this chat with Mr. Joshi, and do not forget to subscribe to Clickaway Creators YouTube channel to appreciate what we do, and you have more coming from industry legal leaders like him. Until then, take care, stay safe, bye-bye. This is Bharti for LexTalk signing off.